Thanks for those wonderful words. Simplicity and genius, I don't know about that, but thank you anyway. What I'm going to do, please, it's quite important that this is not just me chatting and talking. I've got some slides, obviously, we're going to take you through some stuff, but please take notes. That's the most important thing. There's going to be little things, there's going to be stuff that you've heard before, and I understand that. And this is, while the world is in turmoil and COVID and all these problems, nobody knows the solution. Nobody knows what the future is. But we still have to strategize. We still have to have a plan. And yes, we may have to change that plan, just as we changed the plan when COVID arrived. So it doesn't stop us from having some kind of strategy. And even using some of the old tools that you might have used in the past, that's also fine. But the main thing is to say, what are some of the things that are impacting on the world? And when we get back to kind of normal business, we just need to know that this little world has changed a little bit. Technologies have changed, all sorts of things. So we'll kind of touch base on those. And then I'm going to go through a couple of tools that you might want to make notes of, which might help you in your strategy. And then I'm going to show you where you can download the template from my website. So if you're wanting to create your own strategic plan on one page, the templates are there and you can do that. So the other thing is, I'm just going to chat. I'm not going to concentrate on the questions or chat box. Mike's going to look at that if there are any chats. We're going to have a question time afterwards, and we'll have a raised hand type thing either on the screen, or you can raise your hand on your participation drop-down menu. So I'm just going to carry on going, and then we're going to have a question and answer. So make a note if there's something that you want me to refer back to or go back to, whatever. So let me just get into here and share my screen with you. Presumably you can all see, all see that screen. And what we're saying is that the world today, let me just also see if I can get this working. Sorry about this, guys. I just want to, there we go. The world today, we're in what we call a VUCA world, which is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And I'm sure some of you are very aware of that. We just don't know the future. Things are moving so fast. There's lots of volatility in this world. And so we make a plan, it gets messed up. We make another plan, it gets messed up. Things are just changing and moving so fast. And so long as we accept all of that, we know that we're going to have some of these kind of problems, then that's okay. We need to be comfortable with the fact of this world that's kind of moving around. Some of the technologies, and we talk about the fourth industrial revolution. You're almost sick and tired of hearing that word again and again and again. But basically, what the fourth industrial revolution is about these 16 technologies. So the distributed ledger technology, which allows ledger work and accounting to be done right across the world at fast lightning speeds. Artificial intelligence, extended reality, which is a mixture of all the different realities, so that you really, it's really starting to take off and make life very interesting. Quantum computing, which is massive amount of computing. It's not just noughts and ones. Computers are seeing it as a total mixture of everything. 3D printing, we've seen a lot of that. The drones, the space work that's taking place, nanorobotics, blockchain, Internet of Things and 5G and iCloud, and how the connections and all those sort of things are happening. Edge computing, which is very similar to that kind of area. And then the batteries, because we're wanting to start getting away from burning fossil fuels, robotics, autonomous driving, machine learning. So guys, those are the 16 technologies that make up the fourth industrial revolution. And some of them are moving faster than others, and many of them are going to impact on our organization. We just need to be aware of some of the things that are taking place. People are now talking about the fifth industrial revolution. And for me, that's very exciting, because the fifth industrial revolution is humanizing and working in harmony with people and all these machines and technologies. And so for me, it's fantastic, because it's about people. And I think we need to kind of, a lot of people get worried. They think the fourth industrial revolution, everyone's going to lose their jobs. They're going to have, we're not focusing on people. And in point of fact, the fifth industrial revolution says, yes, we have to focus on people and we have to harmonize these two things. And so that's kind of around the corner, and people are starting to realize that we need to get that right. Some of the trends that are happening from a big perspective globally is urbanization, and really that's mainly the focus on Africa and some of the emerging markets. Some of the markets that are established are moving out of cities. You know, in London there's a congestion tax to try and get people out of the city. But urbanization is happening. Personalization. People want to be part of. They don't want to be a number anymore. They want to be individual. There needs to be freedom, and the CX stands for customer experience. They want a really, really, really great customer experience, and that's a trend that's happening everywhere. I needn't tell you about globalization technology. I mean, boy, that's just happening around us constantly. Trust, safety, security, cyber attacks, misinformation. We're seeing that as a trend happening all over the world. There's false information. Australia's just had some cyber attacks. There's cyber attacks on some of the things in the UK at the moment. I mean, all sorts of things happening. Our scarcity of natural resources and water being the biggest one, which is majorly problematic. And then the gender inequality, a lot more women are getting involved in business and politics, etc. And the trend is to sort of, let's make sure we get that equality right, because it is so unequal and has been for many, many years. And then the divergent demographics, older people, younger people, millennials. And in fact, they've got a new group now called perennials. A perennial doesn't matter whether you're old or young, you cope with the latest technologies. You're right up to date with what's happening, with what's going on. It doesn't matter about your age, and those are referred to now as perennials. And then long life health, we're living longer, non-communicative diseases. I put that up and now COVID's arrived, but more people are going to die from things like heart attacks and stress and cancer and that sort of thing, because our lifestyle is changing. And climate change, I think we all understand that, refuse the plastic bag, reduce it, reuse it, recycle it, the pollution. In fact, what this COVID has done is made us realize that the world is, when jellyfish start coming into Venice and dolphins and animals wandering around in Richmond, not only Richmond Park, but into London and all sorts of things are happening. And we realize that the pollution, we've really polluted this planet. So hopefully things will be a little bit different, or we'll certainly be focusing on trying to sort that out. And then people revolutions. That's happening all the time. And we're seeing it constantly every single day. I put that up in 2011, and yet it's a trend that's taking place. So what I'm saying is we need to look at those trends and know that those things could be impacting and are impacting on our organization. We have some external factors as well, and it's the traditional pestle. So your political, economic, social, technological, environmental legislation, it's been around for years and that doesn't change. We still have those pressures, but we mustn't forget about things like our customers, the pressures that our customers are putting on our organization, our competitors, and the competitors sometimes don't even look the same. If you're into retail, suddenly people are going online for retail. So your footfall on shops and footfall in places is changing. And yet the competition is taking that business away in another format. And it's happening all over the place. And then stakeholders. So our stakeholders are not only our shareholders, but our people in our organization, our suppliers, our partnership relationships. If you have any foundation and charitable organizations, they're part of your stakeholder group. And they're also putting pressure on your organization, and obviously your suppliers as well. So what we've got to look at is, yes, you've got your normal pestle, which you need to kind of look at and analyze and look at, and then you need to see those customers, competitors, stakeholders, etc. So these two areas of your mega trends and the technologies that are taking place and the pressures of all of what I've talked up to now has been big, zooming out, external stuff. And we've got to look outside of our organization and say, what is going on in this world? What do we believe is going to impact on our organization? Where can we take advantage of it, et cetera, et cetera. One thing I didn't tell you right up front, and I do want to tell you, is that never, ever start a strategic planning session with a SWOT analysis. Now, I know that the arrow has gone into some of your hearts right now. I'm not saying don't do a SWOT, and I'm going to share with you a very complex SWOT. So SWOT has got a place: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. But never start there, because if you start there, your SWOT analysis is going to look, sorry, I'm just going to admit a couple of people. Your SWOT analysis is going to look exactly like the SWOT analysis from last year. So don't start there. The SWOT, what we need is the bigger picture. We need to view our organizations. We need to come right down. And once we've got all that information, then we look at a SWOT analysis and say, okay, as a result of all of that, how do we get that right? So up to now, I've been talking big picture, the mega trends that are happening in the world, the pressures on our organization, and the technologies that are impacting. And I'm happy to go back over those as well to help you. In fact, I'm also happy if you need to share any of these slides, we're happy to do so. Once we've done that, you now have to come back into your own organization. And the traditional one there is McKinsey's. Let me just, so McKinsey's 7 S's, and maybe you want to just jot this down and give each of these a percentage. So if you write down the word strategy, now it's not the fact that you have a strategy, it's how effective is the strategy in your organization. Does it match the future? Do you believe you have a strategy that's pretty sound and can cope? Do you have to have a new strategy? Must you put a new strategy in place as a result of what's going on in the world? So give that a percentage. That all of these things don't add up to a percentage. So just, put a percentage here under, write the word strategy, and just in your own mind, but try and see it holistically. You might be the CEO of an organization. In fact, you might be running the company and saying, yeah, we've got a strategy. I know where we're going. How clear is that with everybody in the organization? And then your percentage becomes, maybe we need to communicate a little bit more, or whatever. Or we've got a great understanding. Everybody understands the strategy. Everybody's excited about it, and we are kind of storming ahead. Structure is the next S of McKinsey's. And that is saying, do we have the right structure? And the other golden rule on strategy is that structure follows strategy. Don't restructure and then put your strategy together. Get your strategy right and then say, are we structured to suit that strategy? And make your I've had a company the other day said to me, Clive, we're just restructuring. As soon as we restructured, we're going to do our strategy. And I'm going, no, completely wrong. Do the strategy first and then check if your structure marries that. So once again, give that a percentage. Your systems. How effective are your systems and your processes? And your systems are not just your IT. It's all the things that work, and it's the cogs of your organization. The efficiencies and effectiveness of those systems and processes. Once again, give that a percentage. And then your style. Your style is your DNA. It's your culture. And you might have a culture that's really kind of hard. You might have a culture that's really kind of open. Doesn't matter what your culture is, but is it effective? And is it work right for your organization? That's the most important thing. The staff is not to be confused with skills here, because skills are the skills of the people. The staff, literally, do you have the right people in the right place and enough people doing the right things? So it's really sort of the numbers and the correct people, as opposed to the skills. Do you have to upskill? Have we got too many skilled people? Have a look at that. Once again, give that a percentage. And then a shared values is not to say that we have a set of values. I think every organization has a set of values, but are they entrenched? Are they can I walk in, or anybody walk into your organization, and as a result of watching the behaviors of people, to go, oof, I can pick up those values. So I'm just going to mute there's a little bit of background noise here, so apologies for that. So have a look at those 7 S's and give them a percentage. It helps you kind of just get the picture of your own organization. Then what I want you to do is this little model you haven't seen. It's a model that a colleague of mine, Kees de Weert from Amsterdam, uses it in a slightly different way, and with permission, I've adapted it and played around with it. But it's not unsimilar. It's quite similar to McKinsey's 7S's. In fact, you have similar conversations. So what I'd like you to do, if you have a little piece of paper and a pen with you, just draw that little model. Concept, commitment, competencies. And then I want you to look at the concept. The concept of your organization is the understanding of where you're going. It's almost kind of the clarity of your vision. How clear is this understanding of where you're going? Not only for you as the CEO or the MD or whoever, but how clear is it for everybody in your organization? So if the middle part here is 0 and the top part of this arrow is 100, just give it a percentage, 50, 60, 30, whatever, a percentage. Your commitment is the passion. That's the passion of your people. How committed are they? You know, and it's not, it's really to sort of say, you know, some people you might say, oh, we've got a huge leadership team, highly committed, but some of the other guys maybe not committed. Try and look at it holistically and just give it a percentage. It's a gut feel. I'm not giving you a measurement tool. It's just a gut as to how you see it. And then finally, competencies are not only the skills competence, it's the competencies of your systems, your processes, your resources. So see your competencies as broader than just the skills. And then once again, give that a percentage. So you end up with a situation sort of, let me just get my pointers working. Yeah, with a situation that sort of looks like that. You've got your 3 C's and you've given it 3 dots. The interesting thing with this little model is that if you have a leadership team and you have a couple of other guys who it's a great little model that you can get everybody to. In fact, you can take this model right down to the floor of your organization, to very transactional people, and they can also kind of give you some feedback as to how they see the organization based on this, which is quite a nice tool. Whereas if you take McKinsey's to them, they'll go, oh, we're not sure where McKinsey sits. So this is a great little tool. We've used it a lot. And in point of fact, it really covers the same ground as McKinsey's. You'll talk about your strategy, your systems, your shared values. The same discussion as McKinsey's kind of comes out in this little 3 C's, which is great. There are some questions here. We might not have time to write them all down, but these are, and you don't have to answer these, but these questions give guidance as to how to decide on your percentage. And if you have a look at those questions now, you may possibly want to tweak where you've marked your three points on your 3 C's. Do we know where we're going? Are we in agreement of direction? I think the biggest thing is that we don't ask this enough. Why? You really should ask why. Every time, you know, there's a little model called the 5 whys, that you constantly ask why, and then you get down to the cause, and then you get right down to the real reason. So these questions are quite nice and powerful. You might want to take a screen grab or a photograph of this. I'm quite happy that you do that. Are we committed to the plan, the levels of morale? Do we work well as a team? Are we living the values? This is all the softer people issues. And then the competency things like hard and soft skills, change management skills, but also technical and resources, tools, processes, systems. So it's not just the soft people issues, there's some hard issues as well. And when we start looking at all of these, we start getting a picture of our organization. So we've looked at a big picture out there. We've then taken that massive picture. We then looked at our own organization and sort of looked at our organization, and we're starting to say, okay, we've got a fair amount of information that we can start pulling from. Okay. I just want to move on because this, and I'm giving you a list here. When I would normally go into an organization and help them with their strategy, I wouldn't give them the list. I would let them create it. But over years of experience, this is pretty much the things that kind of come out. These are the critical big pillars of every organization. And some of you may have heard of balanced scorecard, and that's your balanced scorecard. So your people, your customers, your finance, and your processes are referred to as your balanced scorecard. So what we're saying is that I like to instead of just having the word customer here, I prefer to have customer service, because as you saw, one of those mega trends was customer experience, and then break that up with growing new customers. So you actually create a second pillar here. You split that instead of, some people just have those, but I quite like to say split that. So there's your balanced scorecard. And then we're saying, what else is critical? It's critical that our people are the right people doing the right things, developed, motivated. It's critical that our customer service takes place. The only form of income comes out of customers. It's critical that we financially perform. Not only do we make a profit that we can plow back into the business or reinvest or do whatever, and even if we're not in a profitable organization, we need to be sustainable. We've just had some results of some of the municipalities in South Africa right now, and it's absolutely disgusting, you know, what's happening there. And the lack of money, and then anyway, it's a different story. It's critical that our processes and our systems support our business in the right way. And then you might say our growth is critical. We want to grow this organization. Many organizations have partners and partnership relationships, which are critical to your organization. This may or may not be brand and image. You might say, no, we've got a good brand, we've got a good image, therefore it's not critical. But some organizations say right now it might be critical because of the disruption that we've had. And then I think this is one that we're starting to see more and more and more with the organizations, is how can we be more innovative? And you know, we're not an R&D company, we might not be a research company, we might be fairly solid in what we do, we manufacture certain things, we sell certain stuff, but we still need innovation. And it's not so much product innovation. Maybe it's innovation of how do we do things differently? What's happening around us? Should we adapt? Should we change? So we're starting to see that as being quite a critical process. I want to share with you then a SWOT analysis. And this is a SWOT analysis that is very different. And if you ever use this SWOT analysis, you'll find that you really get a lot of detail and information. So down the side here is your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And then along the top here are exactly those same. Once you've established those critical success factors, you then put the critical success factors across the top. So there's people, customer, service. So what I want you to do, you can either just point a finger at your screen, or just choose any of these little squares. I want you just to choose a square anywhere. And if you land here, for example, that means that's partnerships and it's opportunities. And so see if you can fill in something, if that happens to be the square that you land on, that is an opportunity with regards to your partnership relationships. Or maybe you've landed here and you say, well, that's financial and there's a weakness. Do we have any weaknesses as far as financial? And try and force yourself or your team or whatever to try and fill in this matrix. It's, you know, the traditional SWOT is strengths and weaknesses of your organizations, internal, opportunities and threats, external. This is a very different way of applying a SWOT analysis, because it takes it across your critical areas of your organization and does a full SWOT. And the detail you get here is really, really good. Now, this template you will be able to download from my website. I don't think my website has all 8 of these across the top, but then you can change it. You can change the names. It's in a PowerPoint slide. So you can download that little template, and I'll show you where to get it from. So that you don't have to kind of recreate it yourself. Where the little X's are text boxes, so you can just type in there into your text boxes. But it's a great tool to use if you're looking at your strategy and where you're going, and how to build a lot more detail into your strategy. At this stage, okay, I know we've got questions and answers at the end, but at this stage, with just what we've talked about, I just want to say, is there any questions, comments, queries, or anything? Otherwise, we'll continue to move. But I don't want you to kind of, because I'm downloading you a lot of stuff in a very short time, and you might want to just say, whoa, pause. Or you might even want to say, Clive, just slow down a bit. You know, we're rushing too fast. But I'm looking at your participation list here, and then at the bottom of that, there's a little hand you can put up, or show it if you've got your video on. But if there are any questions, I'm happy to take at this stage, because we've still got quite a lot to get through. Not seeing any hands going up at the moment. Okay.
Don't see any questions, Clive.
Okay, cool. Now, so what we're saying is, let's just have a look at this. We haven't started our strategy yet. All we've done is done a thinking process. So you've got your VUCA, your volatile, your uncertainty, those kind of setups, the things that are happening in this, the ambiguity in this world, and what is impacting, what are we battling with? What of those 16 technologies that we showed you, that list, might be impacting on your organization? And some of you might be using them, and some of you might be saying, we're starting to use some of these Internet of Things, and 5G will be coming, we know that, and how will it impact, and are we prepared for some of these things? Are we focusing on the human element? Because 5 Industrial Revolution is saying, not only are we looking at these technologies, but how do we integrate that with people, and we get the human side right, which is so critical. And then what trends are going to affect our organization? Those 10 mega trends that we talked about, with looking at them and saying how they're impacting, what influence will they have? We need to kind of look at all of those things. And then the pestle, the external pressures, and then our customers and suppliers, etc. Let's have a look at those things external. Once we've done that, we've got quite a lot of information. We then start looking at inside our organization, our McKinsey's or our 3 C's. And I would suggest that you don't necessarily do both. Either do a McKinsey's or a 3 C's, because the conversation and the debate and discussion in a McKinsey's and a 3 C's very much the same. So you might say, well, 3 C's, we've never done that before. We always do a McKinsey's. That's fine. Might be a way to change it. And then what are our critical success factors? What are the 7 or 8 critical things? I've given you a list, and that's not the exhaustive list. You might say, hang on a second, brand is relevant, but the environment is critical to us because we're in the petro industry or whatever. So you would chop and change that list. Then you can do a straight SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Or if you quite like that, what I call a SWOT or a SWOT matrix, you might want to put your critical areas across the top and do a SWOT. And we've done that with quite a few organizations. In fact, that came from a client of mine. One client of mine said, can we try it? And I said, well, let's do it. And it was such a success that I've now used it in many organizations, and people have gone, wow, it's really given us a lot of information. And then that last part is always ask why. Always ask that why question. It is so critical. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? Why is this happening? What's happening? Why? It really gets to the bottom. In point of fact, a lot of companies today are talking about not just having a vision, but also having a purpose. And the purpose is the why. So once we've got all of that, we're ready to put it into our plan. And there's your one-page plan. That's putting your strategy on a page, and I will show you where to get those templates. So let's just talk about this so that you can see how it all fits. Right on the far right-hand side in red here is your vision. And we're not talking about your individual vision, but you've got that, you've created that. And I've got here simply making a difference. That would be my purpose. Okay, so there's an emotional attachment to the vision. I belong to a couple of groups. One of the ones is the Harvard strategy discussion group. And there was a discussion of, should we replace vision with purpose? And I said, no. You have vision and purpose, because the purpose is the emotional attachment. The purpose answers the why, and that's so important. So the vision goes in there. The values go in here, and you'll notice it's just one big block. It doesn't have a set of arrows that tie in. You have 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 or however many values that you have, and you describe the behaviors of the values. So you don't describe the value, you describe the behavior. And then there are the critical areas: people, customer service, process. Those are those lists that I gave you earlier. And then you unpack that with a little bit of verbiage. Now, obviously, I'm exposing this to you. I would never show, the company has to create their own. But let me give you an example. To recruit, engage, develop, and retain a highly motivated and energetic team. You might say, oh, yeah, that sounds kind of like what we want to do. But that gives you an idea of the sort of language that goes in here. Attract, satisfy, and retain our customers through the service that we offer. All processes to be simple, effective, and efficient. So these are guiding principles. There's no detail in here. These critical success factors are guiding principles. Achieve budgeted targets. And Mike, as a CFO, will tell you, there's no fluff there. You set your targets and you achieve those targets. Bottom line, that's it. There's no gray area there. And grow profitable business in selected markets or whatever. And so you would get that wording right. This part here, we refer to as the compass. And the process is ECAPS. CAPS. E stands for electronic, because we've got it all online. And the CAPS is the Compass Aligned Performance System. So this is the compass. And this doesn't change much. In fact, you don't start changing your values every year or your critical success factors or your vision. That holds water for a long time. Some people say, well, how do we make that vision tangible? And I suggest that you put a metric to that vision. There's a little metric there, 2320. So that would be by the year 23, I want a profit of 20 million. And so if you come over to your profit after tax here of 20 million as your KPI, there's your 20 million there, which is your financial target. And it's reflected again there in your, so now the vision, the 23 gives it a hard number by 2023, bang. Now, remember, this is not a budgetary number, it's a strategic number. So whether I achieve it or not, it doesn't matter. Things may change, just as they have changed. Economically, we're all over the place. We've all had to redo our budgets and whatever. But at least you've got a peg in the ground. We then look at each of these key performance indicators. Now, the KPIs measure the critical success factors. So, for example, a people measurement, perfect people measurement is staff turnover. And the easiest way to figure that out is to say, how many staff? I've got 100 staff. Last year, I lost 7. Therefore, my staff turnover 7%. It's an easy number to work out. Is that right? If you're in a highly technical organization, maybe it's about 4%. If you're in a services organization, it can be a lot more. The motor industry, where I do quite a lot of work, for example, sales in motor industry in South Africa runs at about 25%. Quarter of the sales staff turn. Now, that's probably going to change as a result of what's happened in the world, because people are hanging on to their jobs if they can. But there's a churn there. In the hotel industry, it also churns quite a bit because you've got casuals and people coming and going and moving. Whereas if you're in a highly technical organization, you don't want your staff turnover to be high. So you need to work out what that number is. And remember, everything on this plan is a 3-year plan. It's a 3-year view. It's not what you're doing this year. It's not this year's budget. It's a 3-year plan. So staff satisfaction survey, customer satisfaction index, customer retention, 99% uptime. If you're ISO accredited, that might be a way of measuring your processes. You've got your financial measures, your EBITDA, your profit after tax, your debtors days, stock turns, etc. 20% outside South Africa. So these are high-level measures. And what we don't want is a shopping list here. 1 or 2 strategic KPIs at the top. You might have 400 KPIs in your business. Answer the phone in 3 rings. Make sure this is done within 24 hours. Make sure there's all of those. Those are very operational stuff and they are hugely important, but don't sit at this high strategic level. The meat in the sandwich then are the activities we need to do. How do we make sure that these things, these strategies are going to, and they're quite high level. So if you have a look at that first thing, develop and implement a comprehensive HR strategy. I mean, that can unpack to a massive amount of stuff. Your wellness programs, your recruiting process, your training, your development, your skills. There's a lot of stuff sitting in there. Fit for purpose, energetic teams is a whole of your engagement strategy of your staff. A lot of companies today are saying, how do we make sure that our staff are more engaged? Because many organizations have a lot of disengaged staff. And we're saying, you know, people work and they come to work, but they're not engaged. They're almost disengaged. We need to get that right. So we would work through all of these and we would put work out according. So this is all your innovation stuff, that's all your partnership stuff, your image, etc. Now we're starting to get some detail strategically of the things we need to do based on all this information to take us forward. That is just a plan. It's going to go nowhere. Whether your strategic plan is a massive thick document, whether it's 5 or 6 pages, whether it's just this one page, this is just a plan. And it's the same. In fact, you can take, I've taken people's strategy plans as big as they are and literally copy pasted them and put them into here. And everyone suddenly said, wow, we can understand and we can see this, because this is very clear and it's very simple, and we're not confused about our strategic plan. So we've got to make this work, and we have to put people's names and commitments against this. And we don't want that thing called all. Otherwise we get that coat of arms that kind of looks a bit like this, you know, everyone's pointing everywhere else except at saying, you know, it's mine. So the next step is to say, we take this plan, we keep the compass exactly the same, and we drop down into an individual's plan. This is where the rubber hits the road. So an individual's plan would look exactly the same. That doesn't change. And we cherry pick objectives from the previous. So for example, if we look here, investigate and implement an effective ERP system, we just look at CH. We come back R&D, facilitate, customer focused, CH. Grow the Australian market, CH. Develop and implement partner engagement strategy, CH. And we take those 4 objectives, word for word, and we put those objectives in here. Grow the Australian market. And then we unpack actions and tactics. What are we doing? And this is normally about a 6-month period. What are we doing around that objective as an individual in the next 6 months? And what are the dates and times? And once we've done that, the team needs to discuss it, debate it, question it, and agree to it. Because I might be saying, okay, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. And Joe blogs next to me, says, no, Clive, you can't do that. I've still got to do this before okay, I need to adjust so it's really important that when you get down into your individual plans, that there's a collective discussion where everybody agrees who's doing what, how, when. And so this part of this model actually is the critical crux to getting the strategy to start working. We then unpack some KPIs. These are individuals' KPIs. Now you see that KPI says 2 million there. That might be saying, okay, we're chasing 2 million in this particular 6-month period, whereas we know that there's 20 million in a 3-year period. So remember, this is a much bigger strategy plan, and this is purely a 6-month plan of an individual. There's things like personal development plans, any training we're doing, for example, read a book, go to gym 4 times a week, attend a particular course. Those things are fine. These are soft things. And then some best practices, get up and go meetings every day, have a TTT session, plan weekly, plan monthly. So these things down here they're not essential, but they're quite nice to get a balance to make sure that we're just kind of doing the right thing on a daily basis. However, this is executing on the strategy, and this is measuring our success. So these plans are absolutely crucial to kind of just getting the way forward. So big picture, get our strategy right. Having had all of that work we've done, discuss all that stuff, get the strategy in place. Once you've got the strategy in place, get our individual plans. Now, I want to show you where you can go to get these templates. If you go to my website, and the website is simply ecaps.co. You don't even have to go wah or any of that. In fact, some of you might even want to just, while we're talking, just log in and have a look. Just ecaps.co. That's what you will see. It is an absolutely uncomplicated website. I used to have Twitter and Facebook and this and that, and I've removed all of that. And I've just said, you know what? I I don't need that. There's enough clients. There's enough things happening. Do I want to keep a Twitter account going? And if you look at some people's Twitter accounts and Facebook stuff, they haven't had anything for a year or two on there, and you wonder why, who's looking at it. So it's very simple. You click on templates, okay? And under templates, that's what will drop down. It's that, and it'll continue. So these, remember I told you that SWOT template? There it is. If you click on that, it downloads it into PowerPoint, one slide with that SWOT analysis template that you've got there. This second template here, the 6-month performance agreement, is purely a one-pager that is, let me just go back, that literally is this without all the bells and whistles. It's purely that one page, so that somebody might want to just pick that up. And then these, the 6th month are the individual ones, and whether you've got a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 depends on how many critical success factors you have, how many of those pillars that you have. So, and the ones at the bottom are your strategy documents. If you've got 7 pillars, you pick one for 7. If you've got 6 pillars, you pick one for 6. If you're only using balanced scorecard with those 4 areas that we talked about, you just choose the template with 4. So you can choose any of these templates. They go up to 12, which I think is a little bit too much. I would say that maximum is 7 to 8, like we talked about today. And obviously you must make up a decision about those. And so there's your strategy templates, and just before that, at the top of that, are your 6 months. So, and the 6-month templates do not have text boxes in here. It's plain, because you can take your strategy one, copy paste, and it just pastes it straight in. So you don't have to retype all of that stuff. Okay, they kind of made to marry. Let me show you an example. Quite a few years ago, before we were online, we used, and this was actually a Stanbic Bank, and a Standard Bank, and it's Stanbic wherever there's a Standard Chartered in Africa. We had a team of people, and we had a period to go into, and we literally said, there is the main strategy for Standard Bank or Stanbic Bank Africa. And we literally went into West Africa, all these countries. The only countries I didn't do DRC, I didn't do Mauritius or Madagascar, and I didn't do Lesotho and Swaziland. Other than that, I did all the others, and we got other people to do those. So off the main plan, we then went into the countries, and we got our country plans going. And then from our country plans going, we then had our individual departmental plans, and then right down to the individual plans that we showed you. So here is a situation with a massive corporate enterprise. And when we did this, we weren't even online. It was all done with PowerPoint, mailing them, putting them in shared documents, one person sitting in Standard Bank in Joburg kind of collating it. And then we decided to go online. How do we make this thing online? And we used this example because there might be dotted lines. There might be some guy sitting in here who's the IT guy, and he needs to see what's happening in all of these different countries, but he doesn't need to see above the IT of those countries. So the system is designed to cover all of that. And so what we did then is we then designed an online system to say, okay, you can have your one page. And we got a lot of people who just say, no, we like the one page. It's great. It's super. We work with it. It's fine. And other people say, no. We want to take this thing online. We want to check how things operate and how things go. So it's a web-based system. So it can be anywhere in the world. It maintains a history of all data and information and objectives in the past, and who's done what, who, what, how, when. It's on real time as to what's happening. We can make it big, small, whatever. It doesn't matter the complexities of that organization and the structure. We can cope with that. It does create these plans. So you might put the information in, and it will actually create those plans for you. There's a a monitoring process, so you can monitor performance. You can monitor performance of strategy, and you can also monitor the performance of individuals, which is really your employee performance. And then people have their own access levels. So say, for example, I think many of you know Andre in Fiji. I was there in February, and they for 3 years now have been using the online system. And we just did it electronically for ages, and they sent people out to South Africa for training. And then finally, Andre said, listen, Clive, we need to actually see you face to face. So I was flown out there in February, flew back to Singapore with my mask on because the virus was just starting. In fact, it was quite casual then. And then, of course, the next month was a disaster. But they have got like 160 of their managers all on the system and monitoring their success and where they're going and what's happening. So we know we've had some good results, and it works pretty well. So guys, just in brief then, let me just stop sharing here. There we go. So in brief, we've started today really looking at this massive, huge picture. What's happening in the world? What are some of the trends? What are things that are impacting on our organization? And hopefully you've been able to get some screen grabs, take some photographs, make some notes, and in some cases you say, yeah, we've used these tools before, that's fine. But we need to look outside, particularly now, pull that into your organization, either with a McKinsey's or a 3C's, and really kind of zoning in on our organization to say, you know, what are we all about? And then you might want to look at doing a SWOT analysis. There's many other models. There's also a scope. The strategy canvases. You know, I don't want to confuse you with 101 things. I mean, I lecture strategy at Stellenbosch Business School, so the appropriate models, there's so many of them. I just chose a few that hopefully would help you and be of interest to you. And once we've got all of that, we then have enough information to populate our one-page strategy. And if you've done strategy before, you'll see that the elements of that one page are the same as any strategy. That we might call it different things, but it's the same things: vision, values, critical success factors, or strategic pillars, or major goals, KPIs, strategic objectives. Once we've got that in place, that's just a plan. It's going to go nowhere. We have to then break that down into individuals. Who's doing what in the short term? And then that can actually break right down. So, you know, we've got Grindrod have got hundreds of people using the same system, going right the way through the organization. And they're on the online system, obviously, to track it and see what's happening and what's going on. As I say, Fiji Airways is another one that's got it. And we've got people around the world in Oman and all over. But, you know, if it's a smallish organization, I don't think there's a need to go into the electronic side because, you know, it's small enough for you to just chat to one another. But, you know, the moment you've got a few people elsewhere and you want to track and you want to see and you want, then the online system, because my biggest problem is you go into an organization, assist and help them with their strategy. And that's a fantastic, great, thank you very much. You walk away and you'd say, well, I hope it's going to work. Not that it's my responsibility anymore. Obviously it's not, but sometimes you get caught up in the thick of some things. You get so operational that the strategy just doesn't necessarily get done, or what happens by default. What the system does is bang out emails and reminders. And so it keeps people aware of, and you can run reports and you can see who's doing what, and they can write in little progress reports. And I'm not going to take you in there because that's not what today's about, but that is available, and it is a system that we talk about. So guys, it's kind of 9 o'clock now. We did say 1 hour and then we'd have some question times. I know we started 3 minutes later, so if you want me to carry on for 3 minutes before we have question time, that's okay. Otherwise, let's open this. I'm going to put up the participants. If you click on the bottom of your page in Zoom, you'll see it says participants 14. If you click on that, a list comes up, and at the bottom of that list, you've got a little blue hand, I think, that you can kind of raise. And I'll see it on the screen here, and then we'll call on you and we'll answer any questions that you have, because I'm sure you might have some. Yeah, Carl, here's a hand there.
Clive, thanks very much. That was brilliant. So I sort of feel that I've lived your strategy and sort of done things a little bit all over the place over the last 3 years. So I run a small business, it was probably 30 people, now about 22 people in the recruitment space. And that obviously gets affected by lots of political, socio-economic factors. So last year during elections was absolute chaos. But the main thing I found, so I decided I needed to change. I think for 10 years ran the business quite badly and made a lot of money despite ourselves, but hadn't really changed with the market. The market was being disrupted by technology, the likes of PNet, Career Junction, LinkedIn, and so on. So what I found when I started to ring the changes is it was, as a director and CEO of the business, it was actually a very lonely place. And it was chaotic. I mean, at times I thought it was a runaway train, or you on the back of a horse, and it's just blasting, and people, and there's a lot of resistance, and there's a lot of anger, and there's a lot of resentment, and things are really quite difficult to take control over. A lot of resignations, a lot of people that weren't willing to toe the line, I had to get rid of, and it probably took about 2 years to get to calm down and to start to show that we were on the right track. And at the end of it, the people who had stayed with me were extremely loyal to me and committed to me. So we've got that energy and drive and so on. So my point is, I think maybe what I did was I tried to ring too many changes across too many areas all at once, and it just created chaos. I got the end result, but I think it could have gone pear-shaped. So I just want your take on that.
Carl, I think, and I'm hearing it quite clearly, and it happens in many, many organizations. Even some of those little models, like say, for example, the 3 C's and whatever, the more people are involved, maybe not in the high level strategy, but the more they're involved in understanding the strategy, engaging with the strategy, seeing how things are happening, that engagement gets excitement, because people want to see the end result. People want to know where we're going, what's happening. When there's a change and a change and a change and a change, you're seeing the big picture. You're seeing the change and saying, oh, this is fantastic. They're miles from that. They're not even in the mindset. And that causes the disruptions. So the biggest thing, and I think that's when I said, when we talk about the 5th Industrial Revolution, is the humanity. How do we harmonize that humanity side? Get that right. And people will feel that there's an open discussion. They're able to say what they feel, and nobody's going to whinge, nobody's going to moan. You're going to communicate. When that comes right, poof, the loyalty and engagement is there. So hopefully that's helped. And I'm sure you've seen that just through, you've got there naturally, but it's been a hard blood, sweat and tears. Yeah.
We did start to do training every week. I started to do training every single Friday, and I didn't do the training myself. Every single member of the business had to train. So if the receptionist had to train on whatever, it didn't have to be work related, but they had to stand up and talk about something every single Friday. So I think that automatically built that communication amongst our team. And we have such a fantastic team now. I mean, and it's really, everyone sings from the same hymn sheet, so to speak. But it was tough, and at times I thought I was going to lose it.
Yeah, I want to show you this little thing. I hope you can see it, the TTT. Yeah. And TTT stands for time to think. I came across an organization that every single week had a 20-minute time to think session with their staff or their little teams or groups or whatever. And they would go to the boardroom or go to a restaurant across the road, have a cup of coffee, whatever, and have 20 minutes and change the chairmanship and say, listen, guys, we're not talking about what happened in the business. We're not talking about this. We're completely different. If you don't know what to do, let's put a TED talk on and let's just listen to some other guy talking about octopuses, or I don't know. But it takes people out of the working environment. It changes their thinking process. And I tell you what, they come back just a little bit excited. And that TTT session, or if there's a problem, you say, okay, guys, let's put that problem in the room and let's just fiddle around. How can we fix this? But it's got nothing to do with your everyday operations. And we find if you can apply something like that, it just energizes everybody. It's a great little tool. TTT, time to think, once a week or once every 2 weeks, but keep it to 20 minutes to maximum half an hour. Everybody must do it. It becomes part of their diary. different people change. It's a great little training. It just eases everybody. We did that in London. I had a client who was they do in-house magazines for Asda and Debenhams and Homebase and whatever. And the one, they've grown this huge organization. It's part of the Saatchi and Saatchi group. And the one guy said, you know, Clive, a few years ago when we started, we would just go down to Tottenham Court Road, have a cup of coffee, chat, talk. He said, but we're so busy, it's deadlines, da, da, da. I said, do it. He said, oh, I said, do it. I said, they can't fire me. I'm telling you to go and do it. And he went and he said, it was fantastic. He said, we've got to introduce that again. Just once a week, just take the team out of the working environment, put them into another short cup of coffee, chat, discuss things, who went fishing, I don't know, whatever, back into work again. It's 20 minutes. It's not going to disrupt the business. It just adds a little bit of energy. Critically important. Super. Thanks, Carl. Are there any other questions? I see.
Yes, I think Richard. One of the biggest, sorry, Richard, go ahead.
You're on mute. Richard. You're on mute, Marianne or Richard. Richard, just check your mute. I don't know if I can unmute you.
Okay, all right.
There you go.
Thanks very much for that. Yeah, it was fascinating stuff. So every year we do a SWOT analysis, and I'm not a big fan, to be honest with you. But we have the strategy session that the board wants to get involved in, and they're flying from all over the world, and we sit down and we do this big SWOT analysis. At the end of it, you know, we pat ourselves on the back and we walk off and we go and have lunch, and it's gone. What I really like about this one is that you actually individualize it for all the staff members, so your key players, and then you actually bring that down to that level, and it gives them a target, and it makes them far more inclusive in the whole business as well, I suppose. So that's my biggest takeaway from today, because we really do try and incorporate our staff in the decisions that we make every single day. It's typically not a Mauritian way, you know, it's a different sort of culture dealing with Mauritian staff. They tend to sit on the outside and like to be directed. We're trying to get them to actually get involved and make decisions and challenge us. So that's very interesting, and we're definitely going to implement that.
No, super. Excellent. No, great. Absolutely. And you know, there's many other little plans and different things that you can use that will give you the same result as a SWOT will do, and much better and more engaging, and etc. Yeah. So 100%. I'll go for that. Yeah. Yeah.
But one of the big challenges today is everyone's starting to work remotely. I think a lot of people are starting to feel the fatigue of Zooming. You know, when you're sitting in a room, you can feel the ambience. You can three dimensionality.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas now Zoom, it's like this concentrated face, and it's not it's two-dimensional. It's so, you know, first of all, so the way we're starting to communicate now is not natural.
Yeah.
And working remotely is not natural. Have you come up with seen any interesting solutions?
I've been some lecturing now. We had 50 students. We call them students. They're actually senior managers on the senior management program for Stellenbosch Business School. Now, those guys are there for a week and a week and a week. It's like a mini MBA. And I do 2 days on 2 full days on strategy. And you must know, you've got to have great breakout groups and discussions, and also because 2 days, you can't Zoom 2 days. And they have a whole week. It's mind-blowing, it's fatigue, there's a whole lot of things that go with that. However, what we've tended to do is every hour have a break when we're doing that. So I've sort of said, okay, how do we do strategy? If somebody says we want to do a strategy session, how do we do it like this? And so I've said, okay, 4 hours is about maximum with a break in between, that people can handle this. And then they can get back to their business and carry on. And the next day they have another 4 hours. The next day they have another 4 hours. And in between they can email anything that we need to. And we can actually still create a full-on 2-day strategic process in that period, slightly less cost to what it would normally be, but it can be done. And the funny thing is that the more confident people become at Zoom and their small meetings and breakouts, you know, if I were to go into breakout rooms now, I could break you all out into pairs or threes or whatever, and you would you tend to have a better discussion. It starts becoming a little bit more human than 20, 30 faces on a screen. And so even Monday and Tuesday, when I was dealing with a uranium mine in Namibia, at the end of the day, I almost felt that we were in the same room, and yet everybody was in their own houses and all over the show, because the discussion and debate was so rich. And that's the important thing, is to be able to have people to feel open to talk. And then you almost get that feeling that we're not quite so electronic. You will never replace the face-to-face. I mean, that is, the first time I forgot a second screen here. And as a second screen, thank heavens I bought that the other day, because when I only did Zoom on one screen, and I didn't know who was doing what, how, when, I didn't even know what my next slide was. And I'm just talking away to a little blue light, which is my camera. It's horrific. You need to pick up people's expressions and faces and that. And that, I know, is a problem. But you can still produce stuff, even if the ability is we can't get together. You can still do it. But it's got to be smaller bite-sized pieces, quite a few little breakout rooms, a few things like that, so people can feel a little bit more comfortable, and it mustn't be sort of long, heavy sessions. The one thing about Zoom and all of these things, WebEx and whatever, is that meetings tend to be a little bit more focused. It's incredible, but most people arrive on time. That's the other thing. That meetings actually start on time. You say, guys, we 8 o'clock, boof, everyone's there. So apologies for those who are slightly late, but they've got connectivity problems. But generally speaking, people are, so it is a problem, Mike. But you can overcome it. I have a standing desk. I'm standing now, because to me, that's what I do. When I facilitate, I stand. So I try and be as natural as possible, which is critical to what you guys see. If I'm just there sitting going, and you can only take so much of that, and screensaver. Okay, guys, any other questions, comments, anything? We are here to help and answer, and I hope we've kind of we've literally given you a flat out thing, and if you've taken something away, and then I'm pleased. We've won. That's what today was about, to connect and hopefully share some things that you could walk away with.
I think there was a very succinct and useful overview of a strategic process, as well as a fantastic tools that you have. Richard, I think we should take the recording, and we'll provide an avenue for people to be able to come back and view this. Those that didn't make it today.
That's great. Thank you, Mike. I really